We're grading the New York Giants free agency moves made so far. How did they do? What kind of value did they get? And how do these guys fit in for the short and long term? We're going to talk about all that and more coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Chaina, and thank you so much, everybody, for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day, or if you're watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And if you're watching us on YouTube for the first time, or maybe for, you haven't watched us very often, please consider subscribing and liking our channel. We really would appreciate it. Click that little bell for notifications, and you will be notified whenever we post a new video on the YouTube channel. So hope to have you as part of the family going forward. And on today's show, we are going to grade the Giants 2022 free agency haul. Now, disclaimer, the free agency period is entering or has entered the second wave of the it's a multi-wave system. So it's right now we're in the second wave. The third wave is going to probably start up right after the draft, when the teams pick up veterans that become available after the draft. But most of the Giants free agency work, I believe, is done. There might be a pickup here or there, but if there is, we'll just kind of work that into a later show. But we are going to go and look at the 9 free agents the Giants have signed. And I laid out some criteria that is going to go into the grade, which includes whether they fit a need, the value, which centers on the contract, and some miscellaneous information that's going to go into it. Now, if you agree with my grades, feel free to post a comment on YouTube, or if you're listening on any of our audio platforms, you can send an email to lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com with your grades and your feedback. So that is the agenda of today's show. All right, now for those of you who remember yesterday, I mentioned that Otis Anderson, the Giants former running back, a legend actually in Giants lore, I do have an interview coming up with him. That show I have pushed back to at least tomorrow, pending, assuming that we don't have any breaking news. So Otis and I had a great discussion. So that interview is taped. It's ready to go. And I will have that show for you later this week. Again, the tentative date is Thursday. So just hang in there if you came looking for that interview, and enjoy the grading process that we're going to go through. So, all right, before we get into the individual player grades, I do want to quickly mention and kind of give some feedback on the job that Joe Schoen, the general manager, has done in general with free agency. Now, we all knew coming in that Schoen did not have a lot of cap space with which to work. So that meant that considering that all the holes that the Giants had on their roster, there was just no way he was going to be able to go out and sign a bunch of guys and throw around big money and make big splashes. But what Schoen did do, he did devote decent money to 2 key spots, one of which was offensive line, the other one of which was backup quarterback. And I'll talk a little bit about that as I get to the individual players, but those were the spots that he really needed to upgrade and throw a little bit more money at. And that's exactly what he did. The rest of the spots, 1-year deals, a lot of veteran minimum deals, contracts that he can get out of, and even get back some cap credits. So we will talk about all that. So let's get that started here. We're going to start off with Mark Lewinsky. And Mark Lewinsky is actually one of the 2 free agent signings the Giants made that I consider quote unquote big. All right. Now, why do I consider it big? Because Lewinsky, age 30, signed a 3-year, $18.3 million contract that's technically a 2-year deal. He does have a year in which they can get out of it. The guaranteed money is spread out over the first 2 years. He has a $300,000 per year roster bonus. All right. So if he doesn't play, the Giants can potentially get a cap credit. Now, we all know, folks, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know when I say that the offensive line needed at least 4 new starters. And there's, as much as we would have liked for it to have happened, there was just no way the Giants were going to put 4 rookies on this offensive line to go with Andrew Thomas. It just wasn't happening. So Shane came up with a pretty good mixture, I think, for the offensive line. Most of the players are going to be veterans. I would say at this point, at least 3/5 are going to be veterans, with the potential of the other 2 spots being rookies or fairly young players. That's the mix I think you want. And Lewinsky at guard, that's going to be a key one. Now, right now, I believe Lewinsky is penciled in, I want to say, for right guard. I think he's penciled in for. You want a veteran next to the you want a veteran to be next to the right tackle if your right tackle is going to be a rookie. So I have no problem if they have Lewinsky plugged in next to whoever's going to be the right tackle. I think that's a smart move. Now, if Lewinsky for some reason flips over to the left side, and he can play either side, by the way, but if he does go over to the left side, now you've got a bunch of power over there with Andrew Thomas and Lewinsky. But I do think, if I'm not mistaken, Lewinsky's going to play right. So the value of the contract, okay, Lewinsky counts for $3.332 million against this year's cap. As I mentioned, he has a per game roster bonus of $300,000. He also has the high workout bonus, $300,000. If you remember, I spoke of the Buffalo Bills and how they set up their contracts, and high workout bonuses are a staple of how Joe Schoen and Brandon Beane did business up in Buffalo. So not really a surprise there. Only $1.25 million of Lewinsky's salary is guaranteed. That's his base salary. Then in 2022, he has $4.65 million base salary, which is guaranteed, plus the prorated signing bonus. So 2 years basically, he's guaranteed, and that's fine, because if the Giants are going to draft young offensive linemen, get them ready, put them in the pipeline, you're going to probably need a couple of years. And as long as there's that per game roster bonus, if you find that a young offensive lineman is ready to step in earlier, you can put Lewinsky on the bench, make him a backup. And then, like I said, you get a per game roster bonus, depending on, of course, if the roster bonus is for him to be on the active 53, or is he just going to be, on the inactive list. So that's going to factor into the equation as well. Anyway, the value, let's talk about the value. They needed offensive line help, pure and simple. I'm not going to quibble over the value. Lewinsky, I believe, is, at this point, I'm trying to remember, is he a better run blocker or a pass blocker? I think one of those areas is more fully developed. But look, a veteran guy, a guy who has been durable, so that's good value right there, and a guy who can work well, like I said, if he's on that right side, next to a rookie right tackle. So for all those factors considered, I am giving that particular free agent signing an A. That's my grade for the Mark Lewinsky signing. I like that signing. It was a smart, low-cost one. It's one they can move on from after a couple of years if they want to. And it's a nice little startup, if you will, for that offensive line. So Lewinsky, that signing gets an A from me. Okay, sticking with the offensive line, let's talk about Jon Feliciano, who was brought down from the Buffalo Bills. Feliciano cut by the Bills, and the Giants scooped him up. Now, with the Bills, Feliciano was a left guard. He is coming down to play center with the Giants. He signed a 1-year deal for $3.25 million, which includes a base salary of $1.15 million, $1.25 million prorated bonus, a per game roster bonus of $750,000, and a $100,000 workout bonus. All right, so that comes to about 1.4% of the Giants' total cap. Again, not a bad money deal. And here's the thing with Feliciano. He's a veteran. as you all know. Okay. And he's a guy who is going to know Brian Dable's offensive system, because as I've said before, I believe that this offensive system that's going to be run by the Giants is going to have a heavy Buffalo flavor to it. So if you are the head coach and you want to hit the ground running with your offensive system, you want guys that are going to know it. Ideally, your center who's going to have to make the line calls. That's also going to help take some of the onus off of Daniel Jones, who has to worry about just getting the ball to the right spots and not making, some of the boneheaded decisions that he's been known to make. So to me, this is a win-win signing for the Giants. All right. They can still draft a young center, and I fully expect them to, by the way. I fully expect that they will draft a young center. I don't think Nick Gates is going to be ready this year. I would be very surprised if Nick Gates is given the green light to play at all. But the Giants, they can bring in a young center in the draft, which I do think they will. Get that kid ready. Let him sit and learn behind Feliciano. And again, because Feliciano has a per game roster bonus, if he gets injured later on during the year, or if the young center that is drafted proves that he is ready to go, you make the transition and you don't miss a beat. So there is flexibility in that contract. It is a value contract. I like the signing, even though Feliciano, I don't think has a whole lot of experience playing center, at least not recently. I do like the signing. I like the thinking behind it. And folks, I'm giving that one a grade of A as well, because if you consider that he may have a rookie guard next to him, whether it be on the left or right side, depending on where Lewinsky gets plugged in, that's fine by me. You want an experienced guy next to a rookie. And ideally, you want that experience to come from the center. So I am perfectly fine with that. I think that's a move for me. All right, up next, let's talk about the other big signing that Joe Schoen made, and that is backup quarterback Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor getting, basically it's a 2-year deal, but it does have a voidable year to help with the spreading of the signing bonus. But the deal is for $11 million. It can go as high as $16 million with certain incentives. His cap number for the first year is $2.7 million, which is a little bit more than what the Giants had when they had Colt McCoy as their backup. As you know, last year with Mike Glennon, they kind of cut corners a little bit, went cheap on the backup, and they paid the price for that. But all right, Tyrod Taylor. Now, he obviously was with Buffalo, but he wasn't with Brian Dable. I think he missed him by a year. But Joe Schoen obviously is familiar with him because Tyrod Taylor came in 2017, took the Bills to their first playoff berth of the 2000s, and kind of got to know Joe Schoen and Brandon Beane up there, when they all were on the same team. So here's what I like about this Tyrod Taylor signing. Number one, Taylor has a winning quarterback record as a starter, which is something that I had hoped the Giants would get in their backup. Number two, he has experience and can hold down the fort. All right. I don't think you're going to have that big of a drop off between Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor if you have to make the switch. All right. Number three, the way the contract is set up, the Giants' plan is to give Daniel Jones every opportunity to be successful. I firmly believe that. People are saying, oh, is Tyrod Taylor going to compete and challenge Jones? No, I don't think he's going to necessarily challenge him. Will he give him a nudge? Yes, but I think Daniel's going to be the starter. All right. Now, if Daniel falters, if Daniel is not healthy, if Daniel starts the season and gets hurt, they insert Taylor. And now Taylor's contract is constructed in such a way to where the money gets adjusted to accommodate whatever contributions he's making. If Daniel Jones completely, flames out this year and proves once and for all that he is not the long-term answer, the Giants now have a potential stopgap solution at quarterback for next year, because you figure, okay, the Giants are not going to pick up that fifth-year option. And by the way, if that wasn't obvious before, this Tyrod Taylor contract kind of makes it obvious that they are not going to pick up Daniel Jones's option here, nor should they. All right. So if Daniel Jones balls out, then it's simple. You extend him. You've got Tyrod Taylor on a 6.9 million cap hit for 2023. If you need to, you could always, cut him, or you can move on from him if you need to, go cheaper. If Daniel Jones doesn't work out, then you've got your stopgap solution while you go and you bring in a rookie, or maybe, depending on where the Giants draft, and if they don't have enough, draft capital to move up, maybe they go out in free agency and they get an experienced quarterback. So I like the signing of Tyrod Taylor. I think it's good value. It definitely fits a need. It's an upgrade from what they had. Webb was also signed, by the way. I didn't include him in the grades, but I will mention Webb real quick. The value of Webb is he knows Brian Dable's system. I mean, the Bills were all set to make him a coach until, they had the shakeup up there. So Webb, I think, as a number 3 quarterback and as somebody who can help kind of teach the offense, that's a valuable signing too. Not a high cost signing at all. But look, Tyrod Taylor's going to be number 2, barring anything weird happening, an injury or anything like that. I like the signing. I'm giving that one an A as well, for value, for need, just for everything. All right, coming up next, I have 3 more. I've got Ricky Seals-Jones, Jihad Ward, and Matt Gono. What grades do I have for them? Stick around. You'll find out. All right, Giant fans, we have more grades coming up on today's Locked on Giants podcast. But first, Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but without the calories and without the sugar. Most Built Bars contain about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, and they taste great. Built Bar offers 9 amazing flavors in nut and nut-free varieties, plus a rotating limited time offering of different flavors that changes about every so many weeks. Head on over to BuiltBar.com today and see what their current flavor lineup looks like, and use our special promo code LOCK15 to save 15% off your first order. That's code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked on Giants podcast. Patricia Traynor here with you, and we're grading the New York Giants 2022 free agency class, the main members of the class. There are probably going to be a few others that are going to come down. I would say maybe, if we're lucky, 1 or 2 more before it's all said and done, and then it's all eyes on the draft. But and then I'm sure there'll be some pickups after the draft. So I don't think free agency is officially done yet, but these are the main guys, and this is what we're grading. 9 guys. We did our first 3, all of which got A marks from me. Now we're going to enter our next batch. We have Ricky Seals-Jones, the tight end, it's Jihad Ward, and offensive lineman Matt Gono. So let's get into it. I'm going to kick it off with Ricky Seals-Jones, the tight end, who was signed to a veteran salary benefit contract. Now, a veteran salary benefit contract, is basically a 1-year deal that has a cap number of roughly the equivalent of a 2nd-year player. So it's given to a player that has, I think, at least 4 years experience. But so long as that player doesn't have more than, I think it's $153,000 in guaranteed money, he can qualify for the equivalent cap hit of a player with 2 years accrued experience. So in Ricky Seals-Jones's case, his cap number comes to $1.047 million, which is not bad. Now, the question is okay, where does Ricky Seals-Jones fit in? Ricky Seals-Jones is 27 years old, 6'5", 225 pounds. Not really an inline blocker, not an ideal inline blocker. He's a converted wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken. I think in college, he was he played at Texas A&M, and I believe he was a receiver. So he's kind of light to be a pure inline blocker. But what I think Ricky Seals-Jones can do for the Giants and will do for the Giants is maybe take on that H-back role, that move tight end in motion, kind of take the role of the fullback, because the Giants aren't going to be rolling with fullbacks this year. So I do think the Giants fully intend to draft a tight end. I can't see them not picking up another tight end, obviously. I could see them maybe getting a tight end as soon as day 2 of the draft, maybe like by the 3rd round even. So, Ricky Seals-Jones is going to be that move guy. I don't think he's going to be the inline blocker. I don't know who the Giants are necessarily looking at for, the draft, but I would think that whoever they are is definitely going to be a little bit heavier and maybe a little bit better to help with some of the run blocking aspects of it. Maybe not as an inline blocker, but again, as a move blocker or something like that. And we need to kind of see how Brian Daboll plans to use the tight end exactly in that offense. I know up in Buffalo, the tight end wasn't really as big of a factor as were the receivers. The Bills playing, 11 personnel, I think 71% of the time, which led the league. But in terms of value, in terms of, what Ricky Seals-Jones can bring, I gave this signing a C+. And the reason why I gave this one a C+ is not so much because of the contract. I'm fine with the contract, but I just thought that, could they maybe have gone in a different direction? I kind of was hoping they would get Hayden Hurst, formerly with the Falcons. And I know Hurst signed someplace, I forget where. I kind of wanted Hayden Hurst. I felt that Ricky Seals-Jones, I don't want to say they settled for him because I do think he can be a good contributor, but he wasn't my first choice in terms of, players to replace Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph and Caden Smith. So I don't hate the move, and I think for the 1-year stopgap, he's going to be fine, but I really did want Hayden Hurst at that position, so I'm not going to lie. All right, Jihad Ward, let's talk about him, the edge rusher. This guy actually has a tie-in with Don Martindale, the defensive coordinator. He was with him briefly down in Baltimore. This was a move. Now, I'm kind of curious about this one because this move kind of came around the same time the Giants were believed to be negotiating with Lorenzo Carter to bring him back on a 1-year prove-it deal. And then, of course, as we all found out, the Falcons came swooping in with a better deal for Lorenzo Carter, who is from Georgia, by the way, now had an opportunity to go home and play for his home state team and get some guaranteed money as part of his 1-year prove-it deal. So I wonder on the timing of this. I wonder if the Giants maybe had preliminary discussions with Ward, and had they signed Carter, would they have still signed Ward, or would have not mattered? I don't know the answer to that. But here's what I do know. The draft class is loaded with pass rushers. Now, you can never have too many pass rushers. Ernie Accorsi used to say that all the time, and it proved to be true. The Giants, I do think, are going to try and get a pass rusher. I'm not so sure if they're going to get that pass rusher in the first round. I get the feeling it's going to be offensive tackle and maybe cornerback is what I would be leaning towards right now if you were to say who would be your 2 position picks. But look, they can get a good pass rusher in the second round if they want one, and maybe even in the third round because it is a deep class. So in terms of the value for Jihad Ward, let me just look real quick. I don't think I saw his contract numbers, but I'll check and see if they are out yet. No, his new numbers aren't out just yet, but last year he played on a 1-year, $2.5 million contract for the Jaguars, which is not too bad. I mean, I can't imagine he got more than a 1-year veteran minimum salary benefit type of deal. I'd be surprised if it's anything more than that, to be honest with you, because like I said, I do think the Giants are going to be looking to draft at that position. Joe Schoen has said he wants to build his team up through the draft, and that's why you see a lot of these free agents that the Giants brought in on short-term deals that aren't going to choke up the cap for years to come. I think the days of the 4 and 5 year contracts for guys coming in from the outside are pretty much done for the Giants. You'll probably see some of the Giants' own picks throughout the years get that type of length of contract moving forward. So, all right, in terms of filling a need, yeah, I think Ward definitely fills a need. The value, I don't have the numbers, but if it's a veteran minimum deal, I'm fine with that. So I'm going to give that grade a B. Ward is not a fully complete pass rusher. Pass rushing is his strength. I think he's better off working from the inside, if I'm not mistaken. His run defense, off the top of my head, I think that at times was suspect. Probably better as a downhill, straight ahead type of guy, but I don't hate the move. I think he fills a need. It's a temporary need and one they can move on from if they need to after this year. And I think they will once they bring in another young player, once they fully develop Ellerson Smith, see what they have there. See, also how Aziz Ojulari looks in his second year. See if Quincy Roche can develop further in his second year. So the Giants' pass rush situation, not horrible. They still could use a Batman in that group. Maybe that comes from the draft. I don't know, but not horrible. They're not, exactly hurting at that position. So solid, I think, so far. All right, up next, we have offensive tackle Matt Gono, who signed a 1 year, it looks like he signed a 1 year veteran salary benefit contract. So he's going to count for $995,000 against the cap. That's nothing. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that is nothing. So let's see. The Giants gave him $100,000 guaranteed. He's got a signing bonus of $75,000, a per game roster bonus of $52,500. Not a big deal. All right. So listen, right now the Giants don't have a starting right tackle. If you were to pencil out the lineup today, Matt Gono would probably be your starting right tackle. He will not be the starting right tackle, I don't think, come opening day. I think what the Giants would like to do is draft for that position. They will be in a position to do so, whether it's, Ike Ekwonu, whether it's Charles Cross, whether it's Evan Neal. They should be able to get one of those tackles, I would think, at number 5. So now what Matt Gono can bring is he can potentially be a swing tackle, and he will compete with Corey Cunningham, who re-signed with the Giants. I think Cunningham signed a 1 year deal with the Giants. I also expect the Giants will probably bring in maybe an undrafted free agent at tackle to compete, because it's important that they put young talent in the pipeline, which they did not do last year. That's why this offensive line position is really in dire straits. And Shane is systematically chipping away at those deficiencies and adding bodies and talent to that position, which, just basically the well went absolutely dry last year, just inexplicably went dry. And still a lot of work to be done there, but already you got to feel good about the direction the offensive line is taken, because, you've got Andrew Thomas now, John Feliciano, like I mentioned, Mark Lewinsky. So arguably you've got 3/5 of your starters in there, and it's just a matter of what they do at the other guard spot and what they end up doing at right tackle. And if they land one of these right tackles or these offensive tackles in the draft at number 5, he's going to be a starter, then who's going to be the guard? They could figure that out. You've already upgraded your offensive line significantly. So a lot of reason to be optimistic. And kudos to Shane, by the way, because if it all works out, he will have fixed that offensive line in less than 1 year than in the 4 years it took for the previous regime to do. So that's something definitely to be happy about if you're grading the overall job done in free agency. All right, so what grade do I give to Matt Gono? I'm going to give that grade, I'm going to give it a C+, because, again, right now we don't know if he's going to be the starter, if he's going to be a backup, is he going to be the swing tackle? He's going to have to compete to win a position. But I don't hate that move either. Remember, this is a guy that the Falcons actually gave a high tender to a couple years ago, and then he had some injury issues and became expendable. So there's definitely talent there to be tapped into. Just a matter of how the Giants end up using that talent. I like the move, and I suspect Matt Gono will be on the roster, barring, of course, an injury. So yeah, so far, I got to say, I like most of the moves that have been made by Joe Schoen in free agency. Now, there's still 3 more to go to talk about. What do I think of those 3? I'll tell you coming up right after this. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, I'd like to welcome on board Athletic Greens. They are a new sponsor of the program. And folks, if you are tired with dealing with low energy, poor gut health, or just having to take supplement after supplement, you need to check out Athletic Greens. This easy to mix powder dissolves quickly into a glass of water, and it's like a turbocharge to your system that comes without the bad taste or without any jitters. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Athletic Greens is lifestyle friendly, regardless of the diet plan you happen to be on. And it's super affordable at just $3 a day for a full range of nutrition. So what are you waiting for? Reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. And if you act now, Athletic Greens will give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network and take advantage of this special offer. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and to pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I am Patricia Traina. And again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. We are doing a free agency grade session. That's right. I had the red marker out earlier. Somewhere it's on my desk somewhere here. I'm not sure where I put it down, but I do have my grades on my little notebook. We're talking about the free agency acquisitions, the main free agency acquisitions made by the Giants, how they fit, the value of their contract, and any other miscellaneous things, what it means for the future. And overall, I have to say that considering the Giants had a limited amount of money with which to work, Joe Schoen has done a fantastic job with bringing in some guys to fill in some of the holes that this team has. And I can't wait to see what he does with the draft, because that's going to tell us even more about how they envision this roster moving forward. So anyway, we've got 3 more players that we need to talk about. We have Jameel Douglas, an offensive lineman, wide receiver Robert Foster, and punter Jamie Gillen. So we'll talk about those 3. We'll kick it off with Jameel Douglas, who received a veteran salary benefit contract. Now, Douglas is a guard. And if you remember, I said in the previous segments that I wasn't sure who the other guard position was going to be. Would it be maybe a young player that they drafted? Well, if they have one, yes. If not, Douglas can probably step in and be that other guard, which would give the Giants now 4 experienced veterans and potentially 1 rookie, that being at right tackle. So the Giants, in signing Jameel Douglas, who also, by the way, has a history with Buffalo. He and Bobby Johnson, the Giants offensive line coach, worked together in the past. The Giants have given themselves options on the offensive line. They're not in a position where, oh my God, if this guy doesn't work out, we have to plug in this guy, kind of like what they were last year with Nate Solder and at right tackle, when Matt Parrott was injured and wasn't able to, participate and practice. The Giants had no choice but to go back to Nate Solder, who was coming back after being, out for the year due to COVID concerns. So the Giants don't have that situation. They have left themselves now with options, which is why I like this signing of Douglas as well. Now, I don't know how good he's going to be, but he's a guy who, if they need to plug in at the other guard spot, they can do so. And they can have a solid offensive line consisting of 4 veterans, which wouldn't be such a bad thing, by the way. It's the opposite approach of what the Giants tried to do last year, which was to play all young guys and then have the veterans serve as the safety net. And in retrospect, it didn't work out for a variety of reasons. It wasn't a flawed plan, but when you're talking an offensive line and a quarterback that's trying to establish himself, you probably want to have more veterans on your offensive line than you do guys that are playing positions for the first time, which the Giants had a lot of. With Nick Gates playing center for the first time, Will Hernandez moving over to right guard for the first time, Matt Parrott becoming a starter or projected to be a starter at right tackle, Nate Solder moving over from left tackle for the first time since his rookie season. So just a lot of, shortcomings in the plan last year. And I think this year, Shane and Brian Dable have kind of accounted for all that, the what ifs that could happen. And they have a mix of veteran, and they will add some young guys to that. And I think they will have a very good supply, if you will, of offensive linemen that they can rotate around as needed. So I am going to give the Douglas grade, I'm going to give that a C, because I don't know exactly where he's going to fit in, but I'm going to get C is my middle of the road mark, in case you haven't guessed by now. I'm not going to say he's definitely a B signing because I don't know if he's going to start or not. But look, the value's there. The intent is there. I think this is a guy who could step in and play for them if they need him to. So I don't hate the move. And I don't hate the strategy at all. Up next, Robert Foster, the wide receiver. Now, Foster, if you blinked, you probably missed the news of this signing. Robert Foster was signed to a reserve futures contract. And as I see it, this is pretty much a swap for John Ross. All right. Foster is said to be a speedster, kind of like having that track star type of speed, but a little bit more durable. So I don't know if he's going to make the roster at the end of the day, at the end of summer training camp. But I kind of see him as a swap out, a cheaper exchange, if you will, for a John Ross type. And for less money, a guy who's healthier, who could probably do some of the same things that John Ross brought to the table, I like the exchange. And for that, I'm going to give him a C+. Even though, again, I don't know necessarily that he's going to make the roster. I don't know if he's going, even if he makes the roster, how much is he going to contribute? But anytime you can get somebody who is more durable and can give you the same thing as the guy before him who maybe had some injury issues, that's a win in my book. So I am perfectly fine with that Robert Foster signing. We'll see what he brings. Again, we will see what he brings. The Giants should be set with their top receivers. They still have Kenny Golladay, who's not going anywhere. They're going to have Kadarius Toney. They're going to have Sterling Shepard, who I'm curious to see how much he actually plays. Darius Slayton is still on this roster as of now. I don't know if he will be on the roster moving forward, but he still is on the roster. And then I'm pretty sure they will draft another receiver. I mean, a lot of the guys that they've carried in the past, the Alex Bachmans, the David Sills, and David Sills resigned, by the way, but how much longer are they going to carry those guys? If those guys haven't made it onto the roster by now and they're perpetual practice squatters, I mean, at what point do you just say, okay, enough? Let's get some fresh talent in here and see if maybe fresh talent can make a push for a roster spot. So that's what I see happening at that position. All right, one more player to talk about, and that is punter Jamie Gillen, the Scottish Hammer, who received a $100,000 guarantee as part of his contract. Now, Jamie Gillen Let me see what his total contract is. I think he had a 1-year deal. Let's just see. I'm using over the cap, by the way, for all these numbers. Yeah, Jamie Gillen signed a 1-year deal, $1.065 million, which was far less than what Riley Dixon was set to earn. Riley Dixon just not consistent at all for the Giants the last couple of years. I don't know how well Gillen is going to play. I'm just looking real quick at his stats. He played 16 games in 2019, 2020, and then 12 games in 2021. He was cut by the Browns, if I'm not mistaken, I think due to inconsistency. So I'd be curious to see how he does with the Giants. It's funny because Thomas McGahee, the special teams coordinator, does a pretty good job of developing players, even kickers. And I know a lot of you are probably saying, well, what happened then with Riley Dixon last year or the last 2 years? And I don't want to point fingers here, but you also had Joe Judge's influence on special teams. And I just wonder how much of his influence kind of filtered into the special teams and how things were being coached and how things were being planned. So I think if maybe McGahee gets to go back to running his own show like he did the couple years before Joe Judge came on board and the Giants special teams were so good, I'm curious to see how they can be, now that, you don't have another special teams coach basically, or a guy, I should say, with a special teams background, kind of putting his 2 cents into everything. So anyway, with Gillen, look, he's got to earn the job. Obviously, I think they feel good about him. He's got a strong leg. Is the consistency there? That remains to be seen. But, here's the other thing with the punter. You've got to have a good coverage team. All right. If you don't have good gunners that can get down the field and down balls, you're not going to be very successful. Gillen, can he, directional kick and execute like coffin corners and stuff like that? Remains to be seen. I'm not too familiar with his game, but, I do know he has a strong leg. Should be well suited for the cold Meadowlands winds. So we'll see. We'll see if he can hold the job for the year. And if he can, you extend him. If he can't, you move on. So I like that Joe Schoen gave Jamie Gillen a tryout type of deal, a 1-year prove-it deal. And they will see if he is worthy of an extension. And if he is, I suspect it will not be a lengthy extension because, like I said, punters and kickers, they can very easily be up and down depending on their coverage units. So I can't see the Giants going crazy to make, Jamie Gillen or any punter for that matter, the highest paid at his position. We're not talking a Ray Guy here or even a Dave Jennings or a Jeff Fiegels type. So I think that'll be a modest signing. But anyway, that grade, I'm going to give that grade a B. Better value than Riley Dixon. I'm optimistic. He's got a strong leg like Dixon did, or does, I should say. But, starting fresh and just has a lot to prove. And sometimes when you put a guy in a prove-it type of situation, he can really come through and surprise you. So I feel pretty good about Jamie Gillen right now and his ability to lock down that punter position for the New York Giants. All right. So that is the list of all 9 overall. I'm giving this class, I'm going to say a C+ on the whole, an average grade. There's a lot of value here. There's a lot of flexibility to swap guys out with draft picks. And there's a lot of optimism, as there always is at this time of the year. There's always going to be optimism. But I think the Giants have made some smart moves. They didn't overextend their cap, which I can't stress is so important. Whereas last year, the Giants were signing guys left and right to 1-year deals, and they were basically stretching out their cap. Schoen did not do that this year. So I thought the management of the cap was sound, And we'll see just how much these guys can contribute in the short and potential long term. So, all right, that's my rundown of the grades. Again, if you agree, disagree, whatever, if you're watching on YouTube, put your comments in the underneath the show program. If you're listening on any of our audio platforms, send me an email. Let me know what you think. And that'll do it then for today's show. Again, you'll want to tune in tomorrow. As of now, I have that Otis Anderson interview planned for you. It's a really good interview. And like I said, Otis has a new marketing initiative that I think you guys are going to like to hear about. So I'm excited to play that for you. And, we'll just keep on rolling here on the Locked On Giants podcast. So as always, thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch. And we will catch you tomorrow.